Hey, there we are.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Rant. I've lost track of the weeks. I don't know what week it is. I've given Jacob the desk and the questions to ask, so I don't even concern myself with such things anymore.
It's week 4.
It is week 4. And once again, we're joined by a special guest.
Yes.
There's Tulsa World columnist Bill Haston, who joins me every week. Bill, thanks again for being here.
Thank you. I was just checking the box score from the Sunday night game through one half. Pretty nondescript, dismal.
So far, that's right.
Ball game so far.
But thank you for watching, if you're watching. Or not.
Dismal.
As long as you're
just
watching the Rant,
uneventful, that's
we're
the word.
happy about it. And Kelly Hines of the Tulsa World joins us. This is fun. So covered TU for years and years. I couldn't believe yesterday was the first TU home game you had missed since 2013. TU game of any kind.
Yeah, home or road since 2013.
But you were in Austin, and so we'll talk a lot about OSU Texas. She was there firsthand. Bill and I were at 11th and Harvard. Jacob, what'd you do yesterday? Did you work?
I did. I was anchoring the sportscast while you were off doing,
it was good.
doing stuff. I want to pull up this picture real quick. We got 2003, Kelly Hines on game day as a freshman at OSU.
Who won that game?
I don't know who won that game, but somebody's going to die.
Welcome, Kelly. That's a good picture.
That's awesome.
That's a good picture. I had to put that in.
03.
The boss sent
I like the
way.
Nixon mask in the back row there. You see that guy?
There are a lot of unsettling things about that. So.
I love it. Let's go best thing we saw in college football or football this week or in sports in general. Caden, go first.
All right. Best thing I saw in college football this week. I think you're going to talk a little bit about one of the things that I agree with or share as the best thing. But I'll go with this guy, Jake Spavata. Union grad, Tulsa kid, a head coach along with Justin Puente, another Tulsa guy. Matt Wells, Sallisaw. Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of Oklahoma guys, Oklahoma boys, head coaches at the FBS level. Got his first win in triple overtime, Texas State beating Georgia State. Georgia State, of course, opened the season with a win over Tennessee. So nice start to conference play. Congratulations, Coach Spav, Junior Spav.
Nice. There you go. Bill, what was the best thing you saw?
Well, it wasn't until Jacob, about the 10th person on Twitter that said this UCLA game is crazy, and then I finally turned it over.
And you're watching it right now.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and for them to come back from 49-17 down, could there have been a more demoralized program in the country the last year and a half?
They couldn't have been more hapless in the first three games.
Absolutely hapless.
Scored 14 points in all three of them, including the loss to OU. So that is 42 points in 3 games.
And Thompson Robinson hasn't played as expected. Chip Kelly hasn't certainly succeeded as expected. So
they busted out.
You see Chip Kelly in the postgame, the interview? I mean, he seemed like the happiest guy in the entire sport. He was so relieved and happy just to get a win.
50 points in the second half of this thing.
And I felt great for oh my gosh, everybody calls him DTR, Thompson Robinson.
Yeah.
Passed for 500 yards, Caden.
He looked like Kyler Murray last night.
And beat a quarterback who passed for 9 touchdowns on his home field. Just an unbelievable
Love
game.
that. Kelly, anything in your mind that you best?
I would have said that, but I'll say Tulane beating Houston, wearing beautiful uniforms, and then SMU beating TCU, also wearing beautiful uniforms. I don't think that's a coincidence. Those are 2 teams that are in Tulsa's division. Very difficult division, suddenly.
That was not beautiful. Derek Gregg was right next to us, and we were actually talking about that result in the press conference. I don't think that was beautiful for him, for Coach Montgomery, and for anybody who's fired up about TU, because that's who's coming next. And obviously, SMU is going to be a handful, 4-0 for the first time in a long time. And Jalen McCleskey, former OSU Cowboy, with that incredible finish as Tulane beat Houston. That was a great game on Thursday.
Well, that was just tragically bad tackling, but it was a dramatic
play. It
play.
made for a good TV.
Oh, it's a great moment.
It did. Let's start with some Oklahoma State football. Kelly, you were down in Texas watching the Cowboys lose to Texas 36-30. Should they have won this game, or could they have won this game? Kelly, start.
I think when it's the 12th ranked team in the country and on their home field, them Texas winning is not at all a surprise. But I thought for sure missed opportunities. Mike Gundy kept saying, when you kick field goals, you're not going to win. If they had kicked 2 field goals instead of going for it on 4th down, the game would have been tied.
How about that? Sure.
So to lose by 6 points, I thought that was a game that they definitely could have won.
I wouldn't say should have, because the essence of it is Texas is at home. Not to mention, Texas is super motivated to end this crazy streak against Oklahoma State. So it just felt like Texas's turn to win all along. But yet again, if you don't have the turnovers, if you don't call for that, what a bad play call on the fake field goal too, because Kelly, you got Jelani Woods, who's a giant of a man. He doesn't move around like Tylan Wallace, and you got all that congestion. I thought that was a bad play call.
It looked like they had never practiced it.
Yeah.
It looked like not at all something that would work. And, I just wonder, the penalty that happened right before that, were they always going to go with that? Did the penalty not change?
Right.
What they are going to do, because it probably should have changed.
But to go, to have first and goal 4, and then you get stoned, your offensive line just gets stood up, and you have to kick a field goal. That was a bad omen from the beginning.
Texas fans are saying, look, if we don't muff a couple of punts, we might win this thing 45-20. So it definitely doesn't fall into the should have won, but it certainly does fall into could have. And look, when you're going into Austin, I know you've won there 5 straight times, but this is different. Sam Ehlinger is playing at a level that we haven't seen a Texas quarterback play at since Colt McCoy left. He's played so many games. They had the experience advantage, obviously, at quarterback, Ehlinger versus Spencer Sanders. This is a game Texas should have won, but Oklahoma State could have stolen it, and it does come down to red zone efficiency. Obviously, the fake punt was unfortunate, but forget that. Say you mess up the fake punt. If you're putting 6 on the board down in the red zone just a couple of times when you're inside the 10, this is a very different ball game, and you might just find a way to steal this thing. And I thought creativity was probably lacking. We heard by Gundy say, hey, I think it was on the 4th and 1 where Chuba came up short. We ran that play against Tulsa. We've run that play against people. This is just what we do. And I get what you're saying. Against Tulsa, absolutely. Against some of the other teams on the schedule, absolutely. But against Texas in Austin, where they're winning the line of scrimmage for the most part all night long, you got to get a little bit more creative. I thought Gleason was known as a really creative guy, and especially with the quarterback who can run the way Sanders can. I think we'll see some of that eventually.
Right.
Chuba came in as the leading rusher in the country, and so maybe you just think, hey, look, our
high
best
guy
against their best, let's go. But I thought they could have been a little more creative, and the coaches could have put the players in position to maybe pull that thing out. I understand why it didn't happen.
Just an unbelievable stat line, though, when you have 37 carries for Chuba Hubbard and 1 for his backup.
Well, that is,
carry.
Get into that a little bit more, both Bill and Kelly. That is incredibly, it was 32 against Tulsa, which in hindsight is nuts. If you're going to run him 37 times in Austin, to run him 32 times at 11th and Harvard, at some point, you're going to see the effect. Are we already maybe beginning to see the effect? He wasn't quite the same guy. We give Texas a lot of the credit. But, gosh, 69 carries in 2 games, Bill, and now with Kansas State coming?
Well, for sure.
Redlining.
You keep using it. If his usage rate or the frequency with which they run him, if it stays anywhere near the 30 a game level, he'll lose 50% of his effectiveness by November.
Do they have any answers, Kelly, other in terms of backups?
I just think that it comes down to LD Brown is not what they thought he would be. I had someone tell me
Jeter?
He's definitely intriguing. I don't know if there's not a confidence level with him yet, but someone told me at media day, LD Brown, he's going to have a breakout season. I don't see that happening. Obviously there's not a lot of confidence in him either to have 1 carry when Chuba's out there. 37, that's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know how you can really pretend to know what LD Brown is, or certainly what Jeter might be. If they're not getting any game reps. You got to roll them out and try them. You got to see what they can do.
For sure. Caden, you mentioned the red zone issues for OSU. Bill, do you think that's an isolated incident, or do you think that's something that's going to continue as we go on in the season?
What? Say it again.
Red zone issues.
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't think most defensive front sevens are comprised quite the way Texas is.
Yeah, the Big 12, no, I don't think so.
But just to have a first and goal and not to get anything out of it, or to get 3 out of it, well, that's a red flag, and that's been a hallmark for OSU in this decade of success against Texas. Is typically OSU's offensive line and quarterback advantage have been enough to win the game, right? Well, it wasn't enough last night.
Pull up that stat sheet, Caden.
Yeah, well, Bill always brings his notebook. I got this.
Kelly's left with nothing.
These are the red zone stats from last night. It was 20 plays, 16 runs, 55 yards. To me, roll out Spencer. There are too many options for this to be a long-term problem.
Yeah.
I see it as an isolated incident. They were not creative enough against Texas, but there is a lot, I think, on the table for them with Spencer Sanders.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, he is super impressive. What he can do on the field is super impressive off the field. I mean, he kept trying to take the blame for everything that happened in the game. And I'm like, I don't really think this is on you.
Yeah.
And that's just, something that to hear a redshirt freshman say, that's a little bit unusual.
Some guys get in a 100,000-seat stadium like that, Kelly, and you can tell from the press box that they're rattled.
Yeah, he was
This
not.
guy was born to play in a game
for
like
sure,
that.
yeah.
He was in some ways actually more impressive last night to me than any previous game because of the circumstances. You know what I mean? And because of what you said in the newsroom. If you bundle the big pass play with the zigzag play, I mean that's special stuff.
In the first half, he unleashes it was 60 yards in the air, 55 yards on the completion, a deep ball that there are very few guys in college football who can wing it like that. And then in the fourth quarter, when it's getting away and he needs to make a play with his feet, I knew he had juice. I knew he was a great scrambler, a great athlete, but that play was incredible, down the sideline and then cutting back. You put those two plays together, how many quarterbacks in the country are capable of that sort of? Look, 8-4, getting to 8-4, which in my mind is a good season for OSU. It's going to be a grind because the Big 12 is so good, but you just have so much to work with Spencer Sanders. I expect them to beat somebody they shouldn't.
Oh, yeah.
And I think 8 wins, 9 wins is now what I consider to be just the baseline. Like I think they should absolutely get there based on what I've seen so far, even considering some of the issues last night.
Oh, they should, because I mean they've set 10 as the standard now. I mean,
That's a good point.
I mean 8 is a little bit of
it was
a step.
6 regular season last year, but no, you're right. I mean, Gundy's gone 10 wins for 5 of the last 7 years or something like that.
5 of the last 9.
So yeah, that's the new standard.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, let's go to the Sooners now. Coming off the bye week, right? They got Texas Tech this week. They dropped down 1 in the AP Top 25 to number 6. Caden, I'll start with you. Do you think they have a better shot at the Big 12 now that you see Oklahoma State losing to Texas and some of the other guys falling off a little bit? You think it's higher chance they win the Big 12 now?
Yeah, so they're the preseason favorite without a doubt, going for their 5th straight Big 12 championship. Do I see them as maybe further ahead of the pack right now than I did at, say, the start of the season? And I do. I think Texas is better offensively a little bit than I thought they would be, but they're not quite as good as I projected them defensively. And when I look around at everybody else, you had Iowa State 3rd in the preseason poll. No, I know that matchup, they've done the best job defensively against OU, but Jalen Hurts has been so good that I feel like, and look, Alex Grinch and the defense have been probably every bit as good as you could have expected so far. I think OU's lead in terms of perception in the Big 12 has only grown. I don't want to say I'd be surprised if they lost a single game in Big 12 play, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they go 9-0, if they run through the Big 12 with that kind of ease, if you will. So, no, I think they're probably even more of a favorite than I thought they were back in July.
Well, yeah, me too, because I've seen Jalen Hurts now and just his mastery of the offense. Texas Tech was supposed to have been a really stressful indicator for OU early in the season, right? It's not going to be now because Alan Bowman's out, presumably. I mean, that's what they reported last week, that he's out for several weeks. Haven't heard anything different. So without Alan Bowman, they gave up 314 yards rushing to Arizona.
Right.
So, who has a nice running quarterback,
right.
But he's not the quarterback that Jalen Hurts is. I can see Jalen Hurts running for 200 yards against these guys.
Kelly, so you saw Texas firsthand last night. It always comes down to OU Texas, right?
Yeah.
And certainly last year they met twice, and again in the Big 12 championship game. It's all going to come down to October the 12th. Tom Herman coaches great in these big games. Based on what you saw last night, how do you size up where OU and Texas are, at this point here in September?
I thought that Texas's defense looked really good, did some really good things. There was a lot of questionable play calling, but I thought that, the way that they contained OSU's defense was super impressive. I don't see that happening against OU's offense. I just don't see anybody stopping Jalen Hurts. I don't see it.
Well, there you go. I mean, as long as Lincoln Riley's calling the plays and Jalen Hurts is as dialed in as he's been. I mean, look, we say this all the time, and we get surprised at some point, but no. OU's going to pretty much name their number on most Big 12 football Saturday.
For sure.
What OU can do is flood the field every play, Jacob. Every play with targets, right?
Yep.
Better. They got more targets than anybody in the country. So combined with
more than they've had. As great as their offenses have been, more in terms of
Well,
numbers. Now,
because-
you could quibble over who's better, but I mean, they've got more bodies that are capable.
That's because
than
they had
they've
they had a historic recruiting
Yep.
class. That's why.
Yep.
And
sure.
they all panned out, or are panning out.
Let's talk Golden Hurricane football now. They come off that win versus Wyoming. Zach Smith, first 300-yard passing game since Dane Evans 2016. Bill, you called it
Wow.
the best win since 2016. Why'd you say that?
Oh well, there haven't been that many to start with.
Yeah.
So, but no, I'm not trying to be a wise
No,
guy,
I
but
mean, that's right.
they
That's right.
needed Philip needed like a signature kind of a momentum, legitimate win, and this was fantastic. Not only that they won, but the way they won. It was such a physical game. Kelly, that was like next level physicality. They were really getting after each other, and you know, for TU, you know, somebody texted me right as the game ended yesterday and said, this team does not win this game last year or in 2017.
Yeah, no
Or was that you that who
No, it
texted me
wasn't.
that? Somebody did, and I said, you're absolutely right.
Sounds like somebody
they
would
would
have said that, so smart.
They would have had a valiant comeback or a valiant effort at the end
come up short.
and come up short.
Yeah, no, that's right.
So for them to drive, first of all, you know, circle back to Phillips' decision to leave his offense on the field on fourth down, which I disagree. I think a lot of people disagree with it, except if it had worked, he'd have been brilliant, but it didn't. So Wyoming takes the football. This kid here, Kelly, if he, you know, he's such a weapon in the run game, this quarterback for Wyoming, but their throwing game was brutal, 10 of 32. That's another reason why I punt the football. I'm going to ask Wyoming's offense to drive 90 yards to score against me. Instead, TU gets sacked on fourth down, and they have Wyoming has a short field, scores, takes the lead, but TU's response to me was really impressive. 75 yards, 7 plays, Shamari Brooks, ball game.
Kelly's seen all of these games the last few years. I mean, when you say it's the biggest win since 2016, it's hard to even come up with what number 2 would be. I guess the Houston game where Luke Skipper made his first start.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the most unexpected
Right.
win, especially considering they lost 62-28 at Tulane the week before. I thought the comeback at Fresno State, that would be in the conversation. You know, they wanted SMU in the season last
that's
year.
right.
So there have been some wins, but not really that many. But I do think that that was pretty incredible. Obviously, the dramatic finish that makes everything, you know, seem more epic than maybe it was. But Zach Smith, the way that he played, you know, with the threat on every time he drops back to pass for him to get sacked, he knew that was a possibility every single time. It happened, seven times?
7 times.
And he still stood back there,
that up.
took a lot of hits. They got to clean that up. But I think the fact that he was even willing to take those hits, didn't back down, I think that is extremely encouraging for this offense.
Well, and I failed to mention that's the play of the game right
Sure.
there. I mean,
Right.
obviously Cooper
yeah.
Edmonston's pursuit after actually getting knocked down at the beginning of the play, jumping up, pursuing, and then, you know, it wasn't really a classic punch out, but he just tackled him perfectly. Ball squirts out. Reggie Robinson falls on it. That was 3 yards. They were 3 yards away from scoring to probably win the game right there.
The
So
quarterback play was such a problem for the last couple of years. And this team, I would say, didn't have something to hang its hat on. It's weird for a Tulsa team to have defense as the thing it can hang its hat on, but it absolutely can. And they came up and made the big play yesterday, even after having a rough fourth quarter. I mean, that's different. It's a different way to approach things and try to win, a different formula for success. But Coach Montgomery said afterwards yesterday that this is a win they can build upon. And I asked him to expound upon that. And he mentioned, you know, when you make the big plays late, when you win in dramatic fashion, and I mean, look, Bill, how tense was it in that stadium as Wyoming took the lead? Because it felt like the thing was over.
No, I
Tulsa's
thought it was
defense
over.
had held Wyoming to 9 yards in the third quarter. So you thought there's nothing Wyoming can do to get back in this game. Bing, bang, boom, they score a couple touchdowns, and you're saying, is this going to be like the most crippling loss of the last 3 years? I mean, you didn't even want to let your mind go to what can be if this goes to 1-3 and they lose this game to Wyoming. And against all of that, Kelly, these kids stood in on 4th and long. Keenan Johnson makes a great catch, and then Shamari goes in for the touchdown, and then the defense comes up with the stop at the goal line. We just haven't seen winning plays like that the last couple of years.
I mean, it just had that feel of so many of those other games that, you know, did not work out well. It came down to one play, and they didn't make the play.
That's right.
So to see, you know, Cooper, you know, get that strip and force the fumble, you know, those guys have waited a long time for wins like that, so that's kind of cool to see.
The Keenan Johnson catch on 4th down was the prettiest play of the season for Tulsa so far. And really,
And when you go back, go ahead.
No, Smith threw a high ball on that, but it was kind of strategically.
Said he needed to. That's right.
It looked like a strategically high ball, and Keenan Johnson just elevated perfectly because TU guys had mistimed a couple of jumps in that game on high throws like that. So just a massively clutch catch, and then Edmiston and Robinson. So, and if they had lost to Kelly, you go into the difference between 1-3 and 2-2 is like the Gulf of Mexico. It's huge. But then you go into an open date week, and you got 2 weeks of misery until you get to play again. So, no,
These kids needed that reward.
Man.
And to wrap up the show here, we all know how tough that schedule is. We mentioned it already. SMU beating TCU, and that's who's coming next. And it looks like Navy's improved, and Memphis is awfully good. Houston, it hasn't been great so far, but there's talent there, and Dana Holgerson coaching that team. Tulane looks really, really. You just go week after week. This is why Coach Montgomery just laughed when he was asked
that
last week.
Even include the cross division opponents. UCF,
yes, that's right.
Cincinnati,
yeah, you get the worst of that.
Who knows what East Carolina is going to do?
Somewhere else, and a couple other places in the country right now, they're doing a rant and they're talking about, well, Tulsa apparently is pretty good too. So TU's
that's right.
A very legit presence in this whole picture.
Look, they could finish the year 4-8, which doesn't look a whole lot better, obviously, than last year's 3-9. But they could be a whole lot better. But that said, they're going to give themselves, because of that defense, I think they're going to give themselves a chance to be in just about all of these games.
Well,
maybe you can circle UCF as one where, not so sure. We'll see about Memphis. But I think all those other teams we named, I think Tulsa can give as good as they get, but they do have to clean up a lot of things with regard to the passing game. They got to protect Zach Smith, and he's going to have to, I would say, but just continue to grow in the offense and be a better decision maker.
Nothing like game reps, man. Make you better.
That's right.
But Wyoming scored 37 points against Missouri. They scored 21 points against Tulsa.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Yesterday was you get the best possible result, obviously, but to win it the way they won it, you'd rather have more style points. You'd rather complete 60% instead of 50%. But still, I thought it was a great day for TU. Great day.
And San Jose State.
Yeah, and San Jose State wins.
Beat Arkansas.
Oh my gosh.
And that becomes a really quality win. Hey, look, good things happening for TU at 2-2. And if nothing else, it gives you reason to get out to 11th and Harvard, because when has there been a better home slate?
Never.
Yeah, just never. You had Oklahoma State early. This Wyoming team was really fine. What was the attendance? 16,000 plus?
16.5.
Man, I'd love to see some big crowds at 11th and Harvard this year and actually give those guys a little bit of an extra advantage, because it's going to be rough.
I gotta salute the Wyoming people. The Wyoming traveled
They
pretty
did
good.
travel. They did.
They brought a nice crowd.
That's right.
Caden, I vote we invite Kelly back.
We will absolutely do that. We had Dave Rader last week.
Yeah.
We have a commitment from Jeremy Poplin for next week.
Oh, all right.
So we are enjoying this 3-person thing. I almost said 3-man. This 3-person rant, sponsored by Jackie Ford, our wonderful sponsor. We're loving it. So let's keep doing this, and let's have Kelly back. You want to come back?
Yeah, for sure.
Woo! Right there.
There we go. We won't show that
Came
picture
all
next
the
time.
way from Austin.
We
to
won't show
up
that picture next time. It's okay.
Thank you.
Don't worry about it. Thanks for joining in on the rant. Catch us next week on Facebook Live and KJRH.com. See ya.